Hey, Jesse, how are you?
All is well, sir. How you?
I'm doing pretty well, man.
Good.
So what I wanted to talk about, I think basically your intro actually kind of supports my point. So basically, you kind of went on about how blacks really did better during this Jim Crow period, right? During this period of segregation.
Absolutely.
I think that's demonstrably true. But I think the reason for that is that, they were forced to have black leaders, right? The best and the brightest stay in those communities, right? And make sure that there's order.
You're wrong.
Why am I wrong?
Before the civil rights movement, there was no such thing as black leaders. Black men just lived. They were fathers and grandfathers. They were married. They worked hard. They didn't have anyone, no other human beings telling them what to do, when to do it, and how to do it.
Right. I don't mean like Al Sharpton or these other idiots. What I'm saying is that, like, the people who would go on to be lawyers and doctors and the smartest in those communities, right, they stayed there. But right now, with desegregation, the smartest and best blacks, they leave, which I understand. I wouldn't want to live in the ghetto. But then those black areas, they just get worse and worse and worse. So
yeah.
I think it makes sense, right? And this isn't due to racism. I love black people, I'll say. But I think it makes sense for whites and blacks to just go their separate ways. I think it'd be best for both parties. It seems like we just can't get along for the most part, and I think it would make sense for maybe the United States to carve out a region that is explicitly or exclusive to blacks, so they can govern their own, so they can take care of their own. And I think both races would be happier and better off. And I think it's more in keeping with nature. And again, I think your evidence supports where that's going.
But
I think everything you said about the Jim Crow period supports a movement like that.
No, but being smart doesn't make you moral. Black people today, they are getting those degrees and doing those things, but they have no moral values. They have hatred in their hearts. They have no respect for themselves or others. They don't believe in God. And so it's not about getting a law degree or a doctorate degree. It's about character. It wasn't when blacks went to school, they became a lawyer, a doctor. That was just for them. It wasn't for black people. That individual decided that individual wanted to be a lawyer. However, they made that decision. And what they need to do today is they need to stop catering to the blacks. They need to point out the fact that they are immoral, that they are angry, and that the men are weak, and stop giving them free stuff and make them earn their way. Hold on a minute. Hold on, Alex. Don't hang up. Hold on.
Sure.
So, Alice, I want to make it really, really clear that black people are not suffering because the doctors are leaving the communities or Snoop Dogg and all those people, when they make money and they leave the community. They're suffering because they literally have no character. They are evil.
Well, I think that's part of it.
Because if they have character, the father and the mother who get married and raise their children, I don't care who leave the community, your children are going to be decent children. They're not going to go out killing one another, robbing other people, robbing people's homes and things like that. That's the whole solution. It's not about the education at all, not one iota. It's about the lack of character.
No, I agree, but let's say you're a black man of good character. Let's say you're black and slow, right? So, but you do a blue collar job and you can make a decent living. Are you going to stay in the ghetto? No, you're going to leave, right? So
I'm gonna only leave the ghetto.
They leave these black neighborhoods.
Alex, I'm gonna only leave the neighborhood if I want to, or if the other people are not raising their children to be decent. Black children are not raised to be decent children because the parents are no good. And the ghetto is not the physical community. The ghetto is inside the person. The people are ghetto people. And as a result, what you see on the outside is coming from the inside of them. The ghetto start within. And so no matter where they go, they're going to destroy. Black people, if you gave them America, if white people just left right now, leave the bank doors open, let them have all the money in the vaults, all the communities, the suburb, and let the blacks have everything. In 1 year or less, entire country will be a ghetto because they have no character.
I happen to agree with that, but I think one of the reasons is they wouldn't have a sense of ownership. And I think that's part of the problem.
No, that's not the problem.
It is, though, because what
you're
is
right.
America to
You're
a black
right
man?
in that ownership makes you more, it causes you to be more careful and concerned about what you own. You tend to want to take care of it. That's why I said that America needs to stop catering to the blacks. Let them suffer and die if they refuse to take care of themselves.
Right, but how can we ever stop catering to, unless we get away from this crazy idea of the blank slate, right? And then that combined with, thinking that there should be equal outcomes, even though there are physical mental differences between whites and blacks, there's never going to be this instance where we stop catering to blacks, because there's always going to be unequal outcomes because blacks and whites are different. We've evolved differently over thousands of years.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, in short, look, there's a reason that there hasn't been a white sprinter who's won the 100 meters in the Olympics in over 50 years. And there's a
Why
reason
is that? Why is that?
Because it's obvious that blacks are physically superior to whites. Now, there's also
That's
a
not
reason
obvious.
why. Of course it is.
It's only obvious in your mind, because if white people try and got out there and practice and put they can run faster than a white person if they put the effort. But it's obvious if that's your mindset.
No, it's not about mindset. It's about science. It's about reality. And there's a reason why basically every Nobel laureate is almost exclusively white. And it's not racism. It's because whites, on average, not all, are more intelligent than blacks. I mean, this is just science. It's not about hate. It's not about anything. It doesn't mean that blacks can't take care of themselves. It just means that the two groups are different and that we're best going our own way.
Well, I can't argue that, because that's how the blacks act. It looked like they believe that white people are smarter than them when it comes to science and other things, because all they're doing is trying to take without earning. And so they are acting as though white people are smarter than them. Do you believe that poverty causes crime?
I think to some degree, but not entirely, because if you look at like whites living in poverty, they don't commit anywhere near the amount of crime that blacks in poverty do.
Alex, I have breaking news for you.
What's that?
Poverty does not cause crime at all.
That's kind of what I was saying. I don't think it's a major factor.
It's not a factor, Alex. Breaking news. It's not a factor at all.
Okay. I mean,
and the proof is in the pudding. When I was growing up, I lived and everyone that I knew in my community, we lived in 10 roof houses. We didn't put locks on the doors. When we would go out at night or leave the home, we would just close the door. Bathrooms outside. Outside bathrooms. For the most part, we farmed and raised our own food. We didn't have a lot of money at all. And the people around me didn't have a lot of money. But there was no crime. There was no robbing and stealing and killing. There were no drug addicts. I knew one alcoholic, and that person was a functioning alcoholic. And so poverty, our yard was dirt. It wasn't grass. And if poverty causes crime at all, crime would have been out of control. But it wasn't true. Right. I don't know. I didn't grow up with anyone who went to jail, who robbed, steal, or killed. Everybody respected one another. They disagreed on some things, but they respected one another. So poverty doesn't cause crime at all.
But Jesse, you're kind of making my point, though, right? Because you had a black community. You had a sense of ownership.
I did not have a black community. We were just living in America. We weren't thinking of ourselves as a black community.
Yeah, okay, you may not have explicitly thought of yourselves as a black community, but you were a black community, right? And what happened to the most moral people? What happened to the most intelligent people? Could they leave? No, they were forced to stay.
Stay where?
So they became the guiders of those communities.
Were forced to stay where?
In black neighborhoods due to segregation.
Nobody was forced to stay there. I don't remember anyone wanting to leave.
Okay.
If you're living in an amazing, if you're living in an amazing environment, you're not gonna want to leave your environment unless you just want to move on. You know what I'm saying? But now you don't want to live in the black environment because it's so corrupt, it's so evil, it's so nasty.
Right, but Jesse, my question for you is then, why is it so nasty and so corrupt? What changed, right?
I just told you what changed. What changed was the civil rights movement started, which should have never happened. Black men stopped thinking for themselves and allow other men to make decisions for them, and women. They gave up their families. They started begging and blaming and stopped being responsible.
And you don't think that has anything to do with integration? You don't think that has anything to do with them being forced to compete with whites in their schools, being forced to compete with whites in the labor force, and not being able to compete, and then leading to a sense of a disenfranchisement?
What happened? They turned from good to evil.
Yeah, but the question is why? What led to that?
I just told you what led to it.
Okay, say it again. Maybe I missed it. I'm white and slow.
When they decided to give their lives over to the phony civil rights leaders, when they decided that the fathers should leave the family and let the government take care of them, when the blacks decided that they were going to stop thinking for themselves and let Jesse Jackson and the NAACP and Louis Farrakhan and all those people think, and these phony black women like Maxine Waters, the Wicked Witch of the West, and when they decided they're going to let someone else think for them rather than thinking for themselves, as individuals should do, when they decided to give all that up, they went from good to evil.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I just think maybe you're not correct on the causes. I think again part of the reason why those civil rights leaders were so damaging is because they forced integration, is because they told blacks that they could compete with whites and that they needed to compete with whites instead of caring for their own.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean about they let other people start to think for them, because no one, if you don't let someone force you to integrate or all that crap that they did, it wouldn't have happened. But the blacks allowed that to happen by believing the lies from the so-called civil rights leaders.
But Jesse, let me ask you this. Like, when I look at it, I try to be empathetic, and I think about a black man's experience in America, right? And obviously, just hear me for a second, right? I get it.
You sound like them, a black man's experience in America. That doesn't even make sense. That should not be a conversation, man.
All right, my bad. Just give me a second, right? What does 1776 mean to a black man?
Nothing.
Nothing. How could it? They were still slaves. I get that. I
don't get that. That's not the reason it doesn't mean anything. The reason it doesn't mean anything was because blacks have been brainwashed. Before the brainwashing, it meant something to black people. But because of the brainwashing,
your country, you didn't build it. I'm not trying to be rude, but you didn't build the country. It's not your constitution. They're not your founding fathers. You were slaves in 1776.
But they were born in this country, and they were grateful for it.
I'm not trying to be a jerk.
They were born in this country, and so they loved the country. They didn't care about who built it or who did not build it. And so they built too. They added onto it. They showed their appreciation.
Sure. No. I mean, obviously, blacks did contribute to America. Blacks are part of the story of America. But at the same time, it's not their country, right?
Hey, Alice, if you're born here, it's your country.
Well, unfortunately, right, because we have the anchor baby stuff. but that's a whole other discussion.
Alex, what's wrong with you?
I'm all right. Why do you ask?
You think like them. If you're born in America, it's your country.
No, you're right. I don't think like these crazy black lesbians or any of these other weirdos, but I do think like Malcolm X, like Marcus Garvey. I admire those men. I mean,
Did you build America?
Me personally,
yes.
No.
And do you believe that it's your country?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Why do you feel that way? You didn't build it.
Because America is the evolution, the growth of Europe, right? It's the story of Europe. I mean, even our laws, they go back to the Magna
But you didn't
Carta,
build it,
right?
though. You had nothing to do with it.
No, I didn't. But
likewise, for any black person that's born in America, before the Civil Rights Movement, they were grateful that they were born in the greatest country in the world, and they were born in their country. And they don't. Normal black people don't think that Africa is their country. That's dumb thinking. That's brainwashing. If they move to Africa right now, they're not going to feel at home.
Well, I agree with that, and I think Africa is kind of its own issue. I think you're right. I think that blacks have their own experience, generally speaking, in America.
The only bad experience that black people have in America is that they're fallen away from God, they're immoral, and they can't think straight. And all their bad experiences are coming from them. It's not coming from white people.
All right, but Jesse, you're obviously a Christian. Jesse, you're a Christian. I'm a Christian. Let me ask you this. Like, does it not seem kind of abnormal that you have these separate races that God created that we're now expected to mix after spending thousands of years separated from one another?
When you say mix, what do you mean?
Well, live next to one another, intermarry.
It wouldn't be abnormal if it happened naturally, but if it's happening to prove something is forced together or because you're in a fallen state, then that's not normal. It's abnormal. But Alice, I got to run, man. Very interesting conversation, though.
Thanks, Jesse. You're the man, buddy. Take care.
Appreciate you. I understand his conversations. It's good, but it's wrong. It really is, but it's wrong. That's not clear thinking. Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.